Good evening. Welcome to QUT Web News.
Good evening.
And first tonight, the court case that has fascinated much of Queensland. Gable Dost, his family and that of the woman who fell to her death, Rowena Wright, have waited throughout the day for a verdict.
It was another long day for jury and onlookers waiting for a verdict in the Gable Dost trial. He's accused of murdering New Zealand tourist Rowena Wright after she fell from the 14th floor of his Gold Coast apartment. The jury began deliberations on Monday. They couldn't agree on a verdict yesterday and were sent home for the night after asking the judge a number of questions, including one about Dosti's age and the victim's intoxication levels. When the trial resumed today, the courtroom was empty. The jury was in deliberations, the judge in chambers, and the press waited outside. Then, late this afternoon, the jury wanted another clarification from Justice John Byrne, handing him a note. The trial has been one of the state's most followed cases alongside that of Gerard Baden Clay and the death of his wife. The judge was required to give clear directions to the 6 men and 6 women on several occasions. It's been hard on everyone. 2 families forced to wait longer in a saga that's been going for more than 2 years. For the Dostis, they are unsure if their son would be home for Christmas, while the Wrights simply wanted closure. All in all, a dramatic day. Joseph Ogilvie, QUT News.
Doctors are planning to charge more for consultations from next month and are continuing to dump bulk billing. It means patients will need to pay $41 out of their own pocket.
The AMA today asked for a $2 hike to GP fees, raising the cost of a standard doctor's appointment to $78. They say the increase is necessary.
So the costs for providing a general practice like this are going up and up and up, and it's come to a tipping point.
The government says it recognises the difficult position GPs are in.
We respect and we value that doctors are small businesses and they have scope to set their fees according to their wishes, their business model.
Australians are concerned about the increase, given the federal government has frozen Medicare rebates since 2014.
That makes me nervous. I've got 1 child and 1 on the way, so your costs can really balloon easily.
Yeah, it's a bit worrying. I mean, especially like myself being unemployed at the moment. And when you have to go to the doctor and when you don't have that money to go to the doctor, it's hard.
The AMA says the possibility that the fee increase will discourage patients from seeing their doctor is a concern, and they want the freeze on Medicare rebates to be lifted.
The GPs are saying, Bill, we don't want to charge our patients more, but Malcolm Turnbull's giving us no choice.
And there's more bad news, with Australians expected to pay more for medicines as well. Roisin O'Sullivan, QUT News.
There's been more debate over suggested changes to Australia's tough gun laws, and in particular a rapid-fire shotgun some farmers want. Former Prime Minister Tony Abbott says new weapons should not be allowed at a time of heightened terrorism.
Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull remains firm on banning the Adler shotgun, but some of his ministers have other ideas.
Many of the people that I represent in Western New South Wales are law-abiding citizens, and they would use shotguns similar to the Adler for pest control and for sporting purposes.
The rapid-fire weapon was banned last year. Now there's growing pressure within Conservative ranks to lift the ban. Labor says the government is willing to trade off watered-down gun laws for Senate votes. But the Foreign Minister says the tough restrictions will remain.
The Coalition is determined not to weaken our gun laws.
She says the laws are in place to protect all Australians.
They have served us well in the 20 years since they were established by the Howard government, and we want to ensure that we will keep our people safe in this country.
The states will meet later this week to discuss reclassifying the weapon. Ashley Dwan, QUT News.
Environment workers have started clearing up an oil spill on World Heritage listed Fraser Island. The government is trying to track down the source, although no wildlife has been hurt.
Blobs of oil, some as big as $5 notes, have been appearing over 40 kilometres of sand, stretching from Yurong Beach to Dili Village. More can be seen in the rolling surf. Maritime officials are checking recent shipping movements to catch the culprit.
By analysing the oil, you can actually often track it back to particular vessels. And in the past, the authorities have been able to do this, and that's a really important next step to take.
Experts say the spill is relatively minor, but there may be more oil floating underwater that has not yet reached shore. Volunteers are slowly removing the oil the old-fashioned way with rakes and shovels. Those responsible for oil spills can be fined as much as $17 million under Commonwealth law. Elizabeth Moss, QUT News.
Brisbane finally has its own version of one of the world's best-loved board games. A new Monopoly board using well-known city locations came to life at South Bank.
Mr. Monopoly drove into street speech to help make the game Brisbaneised. On the ground and in the sky, the message was clear. The public voted on Facebook to decide which 22 landmarks would be included on the new board. For the high rollers, it's the Story Bridge and South Bank instead of Park Lane and Mayfair. Brisbane Lord Mayor Graham Quirk endorsed the people's choices.
They are all very loved landmarks of Brisbane, and I think the Brisbane people have chosen well.
But what about when it comes to free parking at South Bank?
Well, you probably get $200, which will pay for your parking instead of going to jail.
Even the community chest and chance cards are all about city bonuses and shortfalls.
While many Brisbane landmarks did not make it onto the board, Brisbaneites selected plenty of other places, like the Ekka Showgrounds.
Next year we'll mark. The Ekka is such an iconic Queensland event, and it's a perfect match with such an iconic worldwide game.
Brisbane Monopoly collector and real-life property tycoon Kim Kamalkis owns more than 300 boards. After 20 years of collecting, she has some useful advice.
Buying them quickly and cheaply, and I just kept going.
The game is available in stores from today. Maudie Veltema, QUT News.
This Melt Festival, which celebrates Brisbane's gay community, expects to draw some international acts this year. It's now in its third year and has become an acclaimed event.
Organisers say we should be prepared for jaws to drop and boundaries to break. Melt has lined up a string of musical performances to entice its audience. There will be 5 new acts, including virtual reality, cabaret, and drag beauty pageants.
I certainly think events like Melt really open people's minds to the perspective of the queer community.
Mr. Stewart says events like this allow artists to express themselves. He believes one act to look forward to is Hedwig, which bears the same name as a 15-year-old film.
Everybody coming to see the film and then the performance afterwards is going to be in a really good mood because they're going to see the absolutely incredible film before we perform, so they'll be pretty happy.
Mr. Lees says Melt celebrates what he calls queer art and culture.
So it's all about community and it's all about love.
He says everyone is invited to the party on opening night and wants the entire community, not just gays, to experience it.
With over 100 performers spread across 6 different venues, Melt promises to impress audiences of all ages. It all happens early next year. Sherlyn Tong, QUT News.
V8 supercar fans are gearing up for this weekend's big Queensland round, the Gold Coast 600. Most of the drivers have already arrived.
Surfers Paradise is already being transformed for the big weekend, when the city streets become a racetrack. But this morning, V8 legends Mark Scaife, Russell Ingle, Stephen Richards and Tony Longhurst got together and into race mode.
You know, all of the drivers love getting up here. The crowd is fantastic. The atmosphere is always electric. And, you know, to race around the streets of Surfers Paradise there is great fun.
But for the drivers, the weekend is not all fun and games.
It's a very difficult racetrack to get right. It's got a lot of very fast sections for a street circuit and no room for error. So the slightest little mistake and you make the fence.
And for spectators, it's a party both on and off the track. Each year, the event grows in popularity. Last year, 197,000 people attended, and more than 200,000 are expected to file through the gates this weekend. Even the old legends are getting a piece of the action.
As long as the phone keeps ringing and the team says, hey, do you want to do Bathurst again, or the endurance races or the GC race, why not?
He says the pull of the power is just too hard to resist.
I mean, you're driving some of the fastest, best cars that you'd ever drive at some of the unbelievable circuits. why would you give it up? Just keep doing it.
The race action kicks off on Friday with off-track entertainment every night. Andrew Beanie, QUT News.
Time now for a look at the weather. Temperatures in the southeast today. Brisbane had a top of 26 degrees taken at 3 o'clock in the city. The Gold Coast and the Sunshine Coast both hovered around the mid-20s, with Ipswich sunny and a little warmer at 27 degrees. Around the nation tomorrow, and possible showers in Brisbane and Sydney. Canberra will be partly cloudy, dropping to just 1 degree, so it's still a bit chilly there. Darwin is, however, hot as always with a top of 34 degrees. The forecast for Queensland, and Mount Isa is heating up, sunny with a top of 37. Possible morning showers for Mackay, Rockhampton and Bundaberg. Cairns mostly sunny with possible showers in the afternoon, a top of 29. The outlook for Brisbane. The sunny weather won't be hanging around, but at least the forecast isn't suggesting heavy rain. The Bureau says we will get a possible shower and a top of 27 for tomorrow. Then Friday will be partly cloudy with a shower or two, returning for the start of the weekend. That brings you up to date with the weather.
And that's all the news we have for now.
We'll be back tomorrow with more QUT News. Goodbye.